Aloha,
Hello.
Sangha.
Hello. Hey, so good to see you. Uh, Take your time to see everybody if you want. Mm. Hey. Mm. So just let your attention settle within your body. And sometimes you'll find your awareness is more on the surface of your body, like aware of different body sensations that just naturally call your attention on the surface. Or you might notice your whole body posture and just check in and see if it has a easeful posture, not too tight, not too loose. So you have a felt sense of dwelling within your body, or the space just around your body. And often it's helpful at the beginning of the sitting to notice hearing happening. Notice that it is happening. And to just check to see, is the attention able to be with any sounds or the silence just as it's happening. The sound of silence often has a texture, what we call the word silence. Even with the sound of my voice, just see if the attention can receive the textures and vibrations of the sound appearing and disappearing as it's happening as best we can. For some people, it's helpful to begin with hearing, as it gives that sense of a wide open field of awareness. Or you're just letting the sounds come to your attention. And for some people, it's easier to get that sense, that felt sense again of connecting with the hearing and the sounds without having to control them in any way. Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral feeling tone appearing and disappearing just as it is. So the idea is we shift from that ease, understanding of the ease of letting the sounds be just as they are, to the sensations in our hands. And of course, the visual image of the hands often appear. And in that case, you notice seeing as a thought, actually, an image thought. And you just notice if you can then bring the attention back to the direct experience of the sensations moment by moment within your hands. We don't have to notice a lot. It can be just coolness or warmth. Just if you know, whatever you notice, see if you can notice. That the attention connects with just what is happening. Receiving moment to moment change. We might notice pressure or heaviness, softness, roughness, smooth. Again, it can be just one aspect of possibility of sensation. And sometimes we can just also notice if there's a sense of it, the sensations being mine or I or me. Or just coolness coming and going by itself. Or just heaviness coming and going by itself. Not referring back to an I or a me or a mine. No need to struggle with a visual image. It just might be often comes and goes also by itself. It's very close by. There's this movement of the breath. So we can start observing that from where our awareness is within the hands, or just bring the attention over to the rising and falling movement at your abdomen, belly. There's the word breath or the visual image. Just see if you can then bring the attention to being with these always new sensations, being born and living and passing away. You check to see, can the attention receive these sensations just as they're happening, or just abide with them as they're happening. Just movement, like the swells in the ocean, coming and going by themselves, not I or me or mine. Whatever appears, we can have this relationship with, of connecting. No need to control whether it's thoughts, emotion, sound, sight, smell, taste, body sensation. There's the thoughts about the experience, which is different than the direct experience. The thoughts will appear about it. You notice them, no struggle, just thinking, not mine. So there's this allowing life to be just as it is. Happiness, grief, sleepiness, restlessness, joy, sorrow, peace, calm, anger. kindness, compassion. They're not referring back to an I or a me or a mine. We just connect, but we're not trying to get rid of anything or get anything. Just being with life just as it is. With as much kindness as we can. May we be safe and protected from inner and outer harm.
I thought today we could look at ways in which our everyday experience can be practice, how to either distinguish or discern or both um, what happens in a moment of experience, thoughts and mental states, speech and activities. And so, for example, either in our daily experience or in the meditation we just had, our deep retreats that we've done or do, asking ourselves the question, is this a moment of mindful awareness, or is is this subtle thought or an effortful moment of concentration that we, in the form of subtle thought, that we may think is a mindful moment, or just our conceptual habit where we often think we're being mindfully aware, but it's a different kind of awareness. It's not the kind of mindful awareness that pulls in reality, that is, pulls in moments of wisdom, that attunes to the features of reality, such as change, impermanence, uh, the discomfort of dukkha, and the absence of control or a controlling agent over experience, for which we may, fret uh, because we feel helpless in not being able to control it. So just knowing that difference, distinguishing, if not actually discernment. Discernment means wisdom is there and knows for certain whether it's a moment of mindfulness or subtle thought or effortful concentration. It's a huge difference because um, in the case of wisdom, the mind just lets go in the face of what's true and what's real. Whereas if it's subtle thought or habituated thought, there still may be this sense of agency that we can control experience and the effort to do just that and the ensuing discomfort or dukkha that we can't do it. So that's always a good. It's a good place, a good kind of um, Dhamma question we can ask ourselves, a probing, Dhamma inquisitiveness, a form of investigation that's not just set in the awakening factors when we practice, but it's more like an activation of our path. Another another area that we can investigate is um, what's wrong, if anything, with dukkha vedana, unpleasant experience. What's wrong with unpleasant sensation, unpleasant emotion? Is there anything? Is there anything really morally, ethically wrong with feeling pain in the body, other than that we don't like it, or we try to correct it if we can, we try to facilitate healing and so forth. But in and of itself, especially when we're practicing and being mindful, is there anything wrong with a moment of unpleasant feeling tone experience, sensations, mental states, thoughts, emotions, sights, sounds, and so forth? It's an important question because um, many times we're conditioned to think pain means something is necessarily wrong. Sometimes it is. But any kind of dukkha vedana, um, we may have the training or education or habit of thinking, oh, what's wrong? This emotion shouldn't be so painful. This sensation, because I've been sitting, I shouldn't have it. I should change posture, or move around. I find that another really helpful question to ask ourselves in and out of formal practice, just as we move about. How much time do we spend? How much effort do we put in to avoiding the unpleasant, avoiding that that natural reality of dukkha vedana, and the opposite too, of course, chasing sukha vedana, pleasant feeling tone experience, pleasant sensations and thoughts and emotions and sights and sounds and so forth. Upandita used to talk about in the monastery when it was difficult, like in the rainy season, and sometimes the food wasn't always good, or we would get sick, the weather would change. He would speak very naturally and um, just organically about if we don't feel well, or we feel sick, or we're unable to practice formally. um, he said practice can continue. We still have the six sense doors. There are still mind moments of seeing, visual clips, like in digital or the early form of film. There's still sound bites. There's still fragrance, taste, sensation, and mental states, emotions that arise. And as long as we have something to be mindful of, the proximate cause for mindfulness is something to be mindful of, and that's the six sense doors. If there's something to be mindful of, mindfulness can continue, practice continues. So, really, virtually from the moment we wake up until we fall asleep, there are this phenomena, natural phenomena, to be mindful of. We're not mindful of concept, we're mindful of reality. And reality is what's true, felt sense, experience. So as long as we're able to attune to that, and that first question, is this a moment of mindfulness? True mindful awareness that doesn't want anything, it's not looking for anything, it's not trying to fix or change. It's just a pure touching of awareness to a true phenomena that's appearing at any of the six sense doors. Is this that kind of mindful awareness, or is it subtle thought formation or, or habit, conceptual habit, where sometimes we think we're being mindful, but it's a different kind of awareness than the mindfulness of the Eightfold Path. Sayadaw U Pandita liked to remind us that the, all the Eightfold Path occurs in one mind moment. So then he would go down the list. It said, right view or understanding is the attunement to the stream of physical and mental phenomena, and that to distinguish or distinguish more conceptual, maybe with some knowledge, and discernment is direct wisdom. What is the physical stream of phenomena, the flow of elements in the body? For example, the behavior of the earth element, textures and temperature and pressure, vibration, movement, and so forth. And the behavior of the water element is a sense of dexterity, heaviness, cohesion, like uh, a plate of pressure is both the air element and the water element together. Um, to attune to the body as it really is, not I'm feeling something here in my stomach or in my back or my knee, but the immediate attunement to the nama or the rupa reality, the flow of physical phenomena as it is, or the stream of mental phenomena. Aware if we're having thoughts that we don't like, for instance, if we just suddenly remember to be mindful of them, that is the mindful awareness that's actually attuning not what we think to what's happening and not what we think, but attune to the thinking formations as they occur, not identifying, not being drawn in to the narrative. Just aware that thought is happening, emotion is happening. Just to know there's emotion. Sometimes, if we don't delve into exactly what emotion it is and the associated emotions, we don't get pulled into the story. We may just label it emotion, and it gives us just the right distance, like taking a step or two back, but very mindful and all the more able to discern that, right, emotions are arising. Emotions are arising and they're causing such and such a sensation in my chest or belly or neck or back. And then we're right there. We're in the practice zone. We're seeing the the nama rupa nature of things, the mental stream and the physical stream, and we're seeing their cause effect. Uh, Something physical that we see may be the cause of great joy arising and feeling the emotion of joy. Uh, I was reading earlier about um, this dog named Eclipse in Seattle, and sometimes um, her owner, Mr. Young, would take her to the dog park. But often Mr. Young would pause, have a cigarette, or talk to people. The bus would come, And Eclipse would get on the bus without him. And she'd look out the window and she'd know which stop was the dog park. And she would get out and go to the dog park and play with the other dogs. And Mr. Young would have to catch up later. And this became so regular that Eclipse became iconic as, Seattle's special dog. She just passed away on Friday. So there's an article about her, and everyone knows that, the Seattle Transit Company regularly picked up Eclipse without a thought. All the bus drivers knew her, and if she got on alone, they didn't think twice. And then she'd go get ready to get off at her stop, and she'd get off and play. And it just gave delight to the passengers. Many passengers filmed her over the years. There's a lot of clips that came in after she passed away. The bus drivers loved her. She became world famous. Eclipse the bus dog. She had a, you know, fire engine red collar, so, and she was a black lab and and part um, um, mastiff, mastiff bulldog. That brought a great deal of joy to the people on the bus, the people of in the transit, Seattle Transit, and the people of Seattle, and people around the world who heard about her, read about her. So something we see, or something we hear, or something we think about, becomes the causative factor of the emotion of joy to arise. Very, very simple, very straightforward. Uh, an object that we see or hear, think about, it's pleasant and pleasant feeling tone, pleasant vedana, can lead to the mental state and emotions of joy and happiness. It's a lovely thing. And we can practice with it. We don't need to identify with it. We don't need to have a story around it. It's a very direct connection with the source of great joy, something to delight in. So, with right view or right understanding, in a moment of experience, we realize the cause effect nature of the stream of physical and mental phenomena that's going on all the time. Every moment we're alive and breathing, and the six senses are present and awake. We're experiencing this nama rupa phenomena, physical mental phenomena. And often seeing, as I just illustrated, that there's a cause effect. There's nothing being done to us or nothing that we have to do. This cause effect happens without agency, happens without willfulness, without doing or undoing anything. It just happens. It's just the nature. The wind is blowing outside and the trees are fluttering. The leaves are fluttering. The branches are swinging back and forth. And also, right view is not only the discernment of the streams of mind body um, and cause effect nature, but it's the understanding, eventually liberating understanding of impermanent nature, anicca nature, and dukkha nature, because things are impermanent. They're not reliable. They're not what we might want them to be. And so that unreliability is not so satisfactory. And we realize that, yeah, we live and we breathe, and we do the things we do. We try to construct and build good things and deconstruct things that are harmful. But still there's this dukkha nature, this unsatisfactory nature, can't be controlled. Why? Because it's always changing. continuous change. And that uncontrollability easily illuminates our anatta nature. There is no agency of control because all phenomena is uncontrollable. If there was an agency of control, then of course we could stop pain and keep pleasure easily. And Sayadaw would then go on to talk about um, the next factor of the Eightfold Path after right view or right understanding is right intention, sometimes called right thought. And these are split into intentions of renunciation, loving kindness, and compassion. Intentions of renunciation simply means turning away from craving or the obstacles that lead to identification and attachment. Why? Because it's painful. If we really have moments of awareness and are turning the awareness in on that mind state or emotion of craving or wanting, especially the kind that the Buddha spoke of, tanha, an insatiable desire, meaning it's never satisfied, we see immediately that it's painful. We connect the truth that that tanha desire is dukkha. It's a dukkha feeling and a dukkha mind state. Why would we want it? And so the mind naturally lets go. And that's what's meant by the intention of renunciation, turning away from perhaps the major obstacle to seeing the truth, connecting with liberating truth, seeing anicca nature, dukkha nature, anatta nature, all of which loosens our attachment and ultimately liberates us from greed, hatred, and delusion. And thus the intention of loving kindness, that if that's part of our attitude, our thought formation, our intention behind our thoughts, our speech, and our action, then the guidance of kindness, unconditional love, friendliness is always there. We train ourselves to, our thoughts are cleansed or filtered through this cleansing attitude of metta, unconditional love. And the third of the three forms of right intention, renunciation, loving kindness, is compassion, how the heart trembles when it faces pain, when it touches dukkha, any dukkha, anywhere, others or our own, whatever is our doorway to initially incite, bring forth this attitude, this intention of caring compassion, karuna. So it's just there, it's just natural. It can be our daily eightfold path practice to, if we look at awareness carefully and make the distinction, our discernment even better, is this real mindful awareness or is it subtle thought formations happening? And then look at the right view, go through the right view of this is just namas happening, mental states, emotions, thought formations, or this is just a cause-effect nature. I hear an unpleasant sound, and so I feel unpleasant sensations, and if I'm not mindful, that may lead to aversion, ill will, blame, repression, and so forth. And then finally, the more liberating of these insight understandings is seeing their changing nature. It may be unpleasant, but if we really tune into it, it's like a constant musical symphony. The sound is always changing. And even if sometimes it's a it's a sound from a symphony that feels down or depressing or difficult, if we tune into its changing nature, we can move through it or tune into the silences between the sound, which is what makes music beautiful, the silences. And then eventually pleasant returns, pleasant sounds return. And this is the way it is. We can't control it. Sounds are always pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant and unpleasant. There's a flat, neutral feeling tone to it. When we're moving about or just sitting in our homes, what is it that we're hearing? And is what we're hearing pleasant, unpleasant, neutral? Are there reactions to it? Is there a cause effect condition going on? Because remember, there's a difference between the natural arising phenomena like Vedana, feeling tones, and the reaction to those feeling tones, which are separate. They're not natural organic arisings of this Namarupa system, this flow of mental stream and physical stream. To dislike and then to feel aversion or ill will is extra. It's a reaction. To like and then to want and cling and grasp is attachment. It's a reaction. It's not just abiding in the nurture of pleasant feeling tone, which is, as the Buddha often spoke about, a genuine nurture, lifting our practice up, bringing along the footsteps of our progress of awakening and liberation, moments of joy, moments of happiness, like similar to the effect Eclipse had in her dogness on the Seattle bus transit, going to her park, doing her thing alone, and quite content doing that. So the metta that we feel, the attitude that we feel, is like a radiance, a solar radiance. In fact, in the commentaries, it's often defined metta as an extra definition of solar radiance, of that kindness, friendliness, goodwill. And the same with the karuna, the compassion. It evokes a message, a radiance of I care. I care about you. I care about your pain and happiness. I care about my pain and happiness. I just simply care. And the attitudes of these intentions, similar to Eclipse, it was just part of her relaxed presence. It's because she could easily get on the bus and just sit down and know that she had 4 stops before the dog park and get off and just do her thing so naturally and so relaxed. Of course it gave people joy. It made them reflect often, if they were in the right receptive mood, on their own goodness and how easy it is to smile and to be happy and to be lifted by joy. U Pandita often talked about the nature and nurture of practice, nutriment. He once asked me to, during a retreat, to be really mindful when I was eating, chewing, and swallowing, to bring a body awareness, bring it up, bring up the body awareness to see if I can notice the nutritive element of food. So I'll talk so much about the importance of the conditions, the weather and the right place, the right teacher, and the right food. So to take it even deeper, he just said, pay attention and you'll feel a sensation, something like warmth, overcome your body. And because your intention is to experience the nutriment of the food element, you'll know that that warmth is the nutritive element of food. And there it was. And when I'm sitting formally, mostly, and sometimes just kind of living alone and paying attention, I try to notice that. Chew slowly, swallow, and see if I can pay attention. And it doesn't have the same clarity and intensity as we have on deep retreat, but I feel elements of that nutritive element filling the body like that, like a warmth, like a sudden warmth. So the relaxed presence that we try to have day to day, allows for these attitudes, these qualities to spread. And then the practice just follows. The rest of the Eightfold Path just follows. We have the virya, the courageous energy. Just pay attention to our steps, our speech, our thought formations, our movements. And then there's more mindfulness, carried by the stream of virya, courageous energy. And then there's more moments of the collectedness of mind that provides wisdom to come through. Wisdom isn't there by command. Wisdom is there as a result of all these other things coming together. The restfulness of our ethics, the non-harming, and then the cultivation of the other qualities I've spoken of. And then the energy stream that supports continuity of mindful moments, and we distinguish between true mindfulness and subtle thought. And then the mind is collected. And then there might be the arising, spontaneous arising of truth. We just know an anicca moment, the changeability of phenomena before us. That might be very helpful in our thought process, or in our speech and listening, or in our activity. And maybe that's all I'll talk of this afternoon, and see if you have any questions for Michele and I, her lovely instructions, and asking ourselves these kind of practical questions in our daily life. Richard.
Hi. I have a question about memory. Sometimes I sort of think that Buddhism sort of frowns upon thinking about the past. And I understand, obsession is not cool. But, this week I recalled something I said in a college admissions interview. And I finally understood why I said it, 50 years after the fact. And I think I'm better for having remembered that and being able to reframe it now that have a little bit better understanding. And the same time, I've had teachers tell me that, oh, you're a different person today than they were yesterday. And therefore, whatever happens yesterday doesn't really matter. I know there's this sutra about the story about the Buddha, saying that he doesn't mind that someone dissed him yesterday because he's a different person today.
I think there's, again, a distinction or discernment between conventional reality and ultimate reality. And in terms of ultimate reality, we are trying to stay in the present moment. But numerous times the Buddha said it's helpful to reflect on a time in the past when we were tranquil, to lift up again the mind that's become unconcentrated or distracted. And frequently he would hear monks talking, and he'd walk up and say, well, what are you talking about? And they'd say what they were talking about. And he'd say, well, that reminds me. And he would tell a birth story about his own past and make a point, say, of a special parami, the parami of patience or of loving kindness or equanimity, through storytelling and through recollection of a past life or something in the past. So I don't see a problem.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Michelle?
You have to unmute there, Michelle.
A memory is happening in the present moment.
Perfect.
No Back to the Future, no time machines.
I think that's where I feel like in timelessness, like in the timelessness that includes past, present, and future. And I think what's important again is discernment, and you did not describe an obsessive pattern at all. You described learning something in the present from a memory that happened in the present.
I won't feel guilty then.
Pardon?
I won't feel guilty.
No, I think that's that would be a misinterpretation, the guilt. To have self-hatred for insight, I would say, would be unfortunate. I think insight is always something to rejoice in.
Great. Thank you.
Looks like Julia might have a question without, yeah. But we can't hear you. There you go. Yeah.
I can't find the hand. I don't know where it is on the screen. I think, again, to do with memory, I found it really intriguing what this story, I'm not sure if it was Steve or Jesse told about the Buddha's disciple at his death, asking him, what should they now do? And the previous translation had been something like go and work diligently, or spread the gospel diligently. The new interpretation was what I had written down here was the task for you is the completion of memory. And I've been trying to figure out what that means. And because at my age now, there's a lot of memories coming in. There's a lot of things that occur now that will trigger something similar in the past. And I'm wondering if this, to me, what the Buddha meant by the completion of memory. Could you talk to that, please?
Yeah, I think, Steve, do you want me to start with that?
Sure.
Because it was a shift in the translation that what the Buddha said. So the translation, translation is changing all the time. So I want to be careful of saying that what was said in terms of the translation I heard, was the Buddha said, strive on with diligence.
Okay.
And what Myatang Sayadaw said as his translation was that meant the fulfillment of remembrance. And so in the context of that, the fulfillment of remembrance, I think when you think the initial few moments of a moment of mindfulness is a recollection of the attention, and it's remembering to be here. If you really pay attention to even what Steve is talking about now, like the questions we would ask ourselves in any moment, you can notice how the attention is often basically not remembering to be here. And so that's what is meant in this particular context about memory. It's a very, very, very short term, very short term memory. It's like moment by moment remembering to. I think that this is where language gets fascinating, because sometimes it's simply coming back and not even worrying about where was the attention. Well, you know, usually it is some involvement in past or future, but the remembering in this case is remembering to try to collect the attention enough to be with things as they are now. Interesting, huh?
Really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, so that the fulfill, instead of, I think that culturally we hear striving and we tend to project that striving onto a future attainment, like of something, whereas, but that's not necessarily what that translation means. I'm not saying it's what it means, but the word striving, I think for a lot of us tends to get us into that kind of being ahead of ourselves rather than coming back to where we are. So that it's almost like it has the opposite effect of what the Buddha meant. Yeah. Steve, did you want to add anything to
No, perfect.
okay.
I
The
might
word
just
sati also does mean memory. The
Okay.
word for mindfulness, sati, does mean memory or remembrance, as Myatang Sayadaw said.
Great.
Because
Hey,
Jesse,
nothing,
did you have something?
I was just going to say exactly that.
Oh,
That's and how much of it was Jake's translation of Myatang
right,
Sayadaw's Burmese
right,
of the Pali,
right.
in that moment. But yeah, that sati has that root of meaning remembrance, and it really is a different. We tend to translate it as mindfulness in English, but if we thought of it as remembrance, yeah, how would that affect the impact of the notion?
it keeps it simple, that which is good for us because we can tend to make things so complicated, but the simplicity of noticing that the attention actually is not collected, remembering to collect the attention is actually quite beautiful. And it can kind of cut through that idea that it shouldn't leave, that you don't worry about the attention getting distracted at all. What one is merely concerned with, and all that we can do, you can't control the attention when off. You can notice that it isn't collected and collect it. We have that choice moment by moment. And I would dare say that's what the Buddha meant by what that translation of diligence is really just that. Again, I think we hear it, at least I do, is to I can make a great case for being judgmental of myself with it versus the simplicity of just coming back to being here. It's a good question. Yeah. I think there's another eclipse that just raised its hand.
Changed color.
Oof, 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 oof.
Oh.
So what you mean by collect, it is focusing, focus the attention. Is that right?
Well, it's again, it's an interesting question of what focus might mean, because I think there are many mind moments that go into a true moment of mindfulness. So I think that for some people, they might hear focus and not relax. So I think it's whatever our particular, we're all very individual in this, and whatever our attention can manage to do to connect. It's like it's a process of remembering, relaxing, receiving, and abiding with. And it's there are many different words you can use. Focusing is, if you mean by focus connection, I would say that. There's so much happening in a few moments of collecting the attention. Yeah.
The dog is wagging her tail.
I didn't quite hear that.
The dog is wagging his tail.
That's great. On the bus. I don't know. I think I can just add, I think it's so, if we don't have any idea of how attention actually works and is, and how it connects and sustains, I think it's often better not to land on a particular decision about all this, but to just really be interested in how attention does manage to be here for a second. Because what we tend to connect with is moving, and it's fleeting and it's changing. And so that moment to moment, kanika samadhi, the moment to moment attention, how does it even keep reconnecting? Like, instead of it being like a chore and a decisive decision about how this is happening, I think it's really interesting to be interested in how it's happening.
When we're really relaxed, the mind, heart becomes happy. And in the sequence of the mental evolution, happiness leads to collectedness. Happiness leads to that stillness, things being felt to come into oneness, concentration.
I think so much of this includes accepting that the attention doesn't remember to be here. So that the more you can accept that there are many moments where one doesn't remember to be here, then it frees up energy. It frees up all the energy of judgment around that to actually, as Steve is saying, relax and just do the best we can to be here. I think that we're so hard on ourselves, and we want to really get, well, how does this happen, so that then we can kind of nail it, versus no, it's actually not that easy. But if we're committed to the process of it and the amazement, being amazed by any, the Thich Nhat Hanh called it the miracle of mindfulness. It's like, there's the miracle of it. And the many of you are old students, and you can just get that sense of like how much more you're remembering now than you used to. That's what matters, is that you get that sense of like, wow, the continuity builds in spite of our tendency toward distraction. As a protection.
You have to
Tracy?
unmute, Tracy.
Thank you. Steve, when you were talking, you started with some questions about in daily life, kind of, is this a moment of mindfulness, or I think you said subtle thinking or concentration. And I sort of couldn't quite, I wasn't sure what you meant by the subtle thinking. Thought it might be helpful to hear, like, maybe an example.
Well, do you remember having really subtle thoughts at a retreat you've had in the past, like at Chazwa? Everything's really quiet and you're being quite mindful. Every once in a while, there'd be just equally quiet thought formations that would come in. Well, sometimes some yogis aren't sure whether those thought formations are mindfulness or not.
Okay.
To think we're being mindful isn't being mindful, right?
Yeah.
But if we're identified with it, we may still think it's mindfulness. Like a commentary about an experience, a sound, a memory. We think that's being mindful, but it's a commentary.
Mm-hmm.
You've had those experiences.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciated what you were saying about when, because it is more, in daily life, it's just not as clear.
It's not. That's
And
right. That's why we ask ourselves.
yeah, and then just that when you were saying that when it's mindfulness, like things relax, like, and I really experienced that tonight around the decision I was making. And it doesn't mean that it's easy, but I could feel that it was the truth.
Yeah.
I didn't. And then there had been all this doubt before and all this chaos in the mind because it didn't want that to be true. But
That's a good description.
But anyway, I really appreciate the focus on the daily life piece. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Tracy. Good example.
I think what you described, Tracy, just to give you positive feedback that even though we'll have experiences of things being clearer on a long retreat and deeper, that you can see that you've come to a clarity without it. And that's so important. It gives us a lot of confidence. With concentration, there's always the fear of losing it, but with wise attention, it can happen any moment. It doesn't depend on a buildup of concentration necessarily. So that's important to get this confidence but of course sometimes it takes time. You're not describing it happening in a second, but you waited until you knew.
Thank you. Feels like the fruits of the practice.
Yeah.
To be able to be with the storm that was happening until it settled.
That's great.
Much.
Hi, Samantha.
You have to unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. I had a little bit of a follow-up on the question, I guess, also having to do with rest, insight, and sleep. So often, especially lately, in the middle of the night, it's definitely harder to stay close to experience. But especially during long retreats, but then even if I just sit before bedtime, in the middle of the night, I wake up and I'm thinking, this is horrible. I hate waking up in the middle of the night. But then I think because I was so rested, then some clarity comes and it's almost like lightning. And I'm just grateful. And I try to fall asleep again. I guess my question is there a way I can do that without interrupting my sleep?
Most insights and awakening moments occur when we're not looking. Like you might be hanging up your clothes on a clothesline and just let go of the clothespin and be bringing your hand down or turning around. It's like when we're relaxed, like when you wake up and you haven't been streaming thoughts,
Right,
identified thoughts.
right.
Yeah, it's in those in between moments where we're relaxed that intuitive insight comes up, like Michelle was talking to Tracy about.
Mm-hmm.
So just sleep before an important insight. Rest. The question is really rest, not
Right.
sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not striving.
Right. So maybe what you're telling me is try to get to that space without needing to really just.
Yeah, not delve into it like it's a problem to solve or something to fix. Just lean back in time, take a breath, get some oxygen into your system.
You really can't control when these things happen. They don't happen under our control, as Steve is saying. So maybe it's well, by the time you hit your 70s, you really don't sleep as much from, most people don't, so might as well look forward to it. That's what I say.
Waking up at 3 is pretty common, I hear, among my generation.
Yep. Something to look forward to when you see that insight can happen at that time. Yeah. Well, Jesse,
Samantha's hand is up.
go ahead.
Samantha's hand is.
Pat, they've already talked to Samantha.
Yeah. I was going to say, Jesse, it looks like you're not on the Hawaii world.
It is very true. I'm in distant lands from Hawaii.
Half the temperature is here.
I'm in Ohio right now visiting my 94-year-old grandfather. I think, just to say, I think there's a part where you start to arc towards more sleep again. That's my...
Oh, your grandfather.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Good point.
Samantha, when you're in your 90s, you might just slide right back into what you're aiming for.
That's great.
That's a lot to look forward to.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'll be back home next week, and yeah, looking forward to seeing everyone again. I am always aware when I come to this time zone how valiant our yogis on the Eastern time zone are, staying up late on a Sunday. It's wonderful.
Wow. So we're cheering you on for the week. May we be happy and peaceful of heart.
And relaxed.